Imagine your deepest, darkest secret. Now, imagine if that secret physically manifested into a literal breathing monster and just showed up at your front door for everyone to see.
That is such a terrifying thought.
Right. But that is the exact premise of the avant-garde stage epic we are plunging into today. Welcome back to the deep dive. And for this experience, we have a totally unique mission for you.
We really do. It's a fun one.
Yeah, we are taking a sprawling, dark, incredibly visual manuscript called The Monstrous Legacy of Violet Phemic Boobs, and we're going to act as your theater audio describers.
Which is going to be wild.
It is. So we want you to picture yourself sitting in the front row of this old, opulent theater. The house lights dim to a pitch black. There is this heavy, expectant silence. And as the massive velvet curtain rises, we are going to paint this dystopian fantasy epic right in your mind's eye.
And, the goal here isn't just to recount some bizarre fantasy narrative. This source text is incredibly rich with sensory detail and metaphor. We are going to bring the dystopian set designs and the visceral choreography to life for you.
Absolutely.
But we also need to unpack what is actually functioning beneath the stage floorboards. Because underneath the practical effects and, well, the theatrical gore, this manuscript is a profound psychological study.
Yeah, a really dark one.
Exactly. It's an exploration of how suppressed shame operates and what happens when the consequences of our actions inevitably return to haunt us.
Reading through the stage directions and the narrative source material, the best analogy I could come up with for the experience you're about to have is imagine you are watching a beautiful, sweeping nature documentary on PBS.
Oh, I like that.
Right. It's calming, the cinematography is lush, and you feel entirely at peace. And then right before your eyes, without a single commercial break or any warning at all, it mutates into a terrifying, visceral horror film. The shift is just so jarring, it leaves you breathless.
Yeah, and that whiplash is entirely intentional on the director's part. The play is meticulously structured to make you feel the exact psychological disruption that the main character experiences. It lulls you into a false sense of security before completely ripping the floor out from under you.
So let's show you exactly how that happens as we set the stage for Act 1. The sanctuary and the seduction. The spotlight hits the center of the stage, and we see our protagonist, the young maiden, Violet.
And this is long before she earns the title of elder.
Right, yes. She's young here. And the set design is breathtakingly serene. We are talking vibrant, flourishing garden sets, flowing blue waters created by these incredible lighting effects, rich green vines, plump fruits hanging from the branches. It is a perfect, cultivated sanctuary.
It feels completely safe.
It does. But then the sound design kicks in. It starts as this heavy, rhythmic thudding vibrating right in your chest. Then comes the sudden, jarring arrival of this wild, magnificent boar pig named Bark-Kiss.
Such a dramatic entrance.
Oh, it's huge. The text describes this entrance so vividly you can practically smell the theatrical dust kicking up from his charging thrust. You see the pulsing muscles of the creature, the veins thick with pure testosterone. It is this overwhelming, highly masculine physical presence, completely invading this delicate garden.
And you really have to notice the blocking of this scene, like how the director positions the actors. Violet doesn't scream. She doesn't run away. She just greases.
Yeah, she's transfixed.
Exactly. It's an electric first encounter. She is standing in absolute awe. She locks eyes with this hulking beast, and the text explicitly notes that she sees past the monstrous exterior. She looks directly into the, quote, brown, wide stare of a lonely soul.
Wow.
Yeah, the narrative is establishing an instant, unbreakable psychological connection here between the maiden and the beast.
Which raises a fascinating question for you to ponder as you visualize this play. Is this a story about a pure, innocent garden being corrupted by an external wild force? Or is this actual proof that the wild was inside the maiden all along, just waiting for a mirror to reflect it back to her?
I mean, that is the core philosophical tension of the entire epic. The text deliberately shatters the illusion of the perfect sanctuary. Violet genuinely believes she could cultivate nature, control it, and keep it pretty and safe within her high garden walls.
Right, totally sanitized.
Yeah, but true, untamed nature, and more importantly, true, untamed human desire cannot be kept out by offense. When Barkis arrives, the play shatters the illusion that we can ever fully sanitize our primal instincts.
But that unbreakable connection to the wild comes with a severe psychological cost. Once Violet realizes she can't just be a passive observer, once she actively desires the beast, the genre of the story violently shifts.
It really does.
We enter Act 2, and the sanctuary literally darkens. The lush greens and calming blues wash out completely. You, sitting in the audience, are suddenly bathed in ominous, deep red and oppressive black lighting.
The whole mood just drops.
Exactly, and the audio design changes to the sound of hot, whispering winds. We see Violette consumed by this forbidden lust, this compulsion to mate with the beast. She acts on it by literally casting a desperate wish out into those hot winds.
And the visual effects here are stunning.
Oh, yeah. Through this brilliant use of projection mapping on the backdrop, we watch as that wish is carried over dark, jagged mountains, landing directly into the pointed ears of a central figure in this mythology, Eshtasha.
The demonic princess of shame.
Yes.
And it is crucial to understand who is granting this wish. Eshtasha isn't just a generic antagonist. She is the literal embodiment of shame. That is the currency she deals in, and it guarantees that any wish she grants will come with a devastating psychological price tag.
And that price arrives 9 months later on stage. The birth scene is horrifying.
It's so visceral.
The practical effects are grotesque. 5 piglet humanoids are born onto the stage: Heathist, Haleyshitz, Dekaya, Durwood, and Dillwood. The lighting is harsh and unforgiving on Violet's face. You see raw fear, pure disgust.
It's a complete 180 from her desire earlier.
Yes. She frantically packs these crying, hungry newborns into a large basket, drags it to the edge of her garden, shoves it between the raised roots of a massive weeping willow tree, and abandons them to the elements. The physical acting here is frantic, almost manic.
Oh, the choreography of her panic is incredible.
But I have to admit, I really struggled with the character's reaction here. We just watched her mere scenes ago literally beg the universe for this exact union. She cast her desire into the wind, but the exact second the physical reality of that union arrives, she throws them away. Why does the shame instantly overpower the intense desire she just felt?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at the psychological mechanics of cognitive dissonance. When Violet's desire was just a fantasy, a secret wish in the wind, it felt romantic. She could control the narrative in her head.
Right, it was safe.
Exactly. But confronted with the fleshy, breathing reality of what she actually desired, the brain literally cannot reconcile her self-image as a pure, innocent maiden with the monstrous output screaming on the floor in front of her.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that gap between who she thinks she is and what she actually produced creates an unbearable psychological friction. The cruel twist of Eshtasha's curse is that Violet is forced to physically behold the manifestation of her own suppressed lust. Her ego cannot handle the dissonance, so it triggers a panic response.
Wow.
By throwing the babies into the roots of the tree, she isn't just abandoning children, she is desperately attempting to discard her own shame.
And so she attempts to bury that dissonance in the dirt. But the wild does not keep secrets. That brings us to Act 3, where the stage direction becomes a frenetic, strobe-lit sequence of pure survival.
It is absolute chaos.
Total chaos. The 5 shivering infants spill from their tipped basket. They are starving, so they crawl toward a vine of juicy red berries. But the second they start to eat, the stage becomes a chaotic sea of stinging red movement. They are ambushed by a terrifying, biting army of red warden ants. And just as you process that horror, a massive jump scare. A huge, historically hungry wolf, operated by multiple puppeteers, leaps from the shadows of the set and swallows 3 of the siblings in a single, terrifying gulp.
It is a completely unforgiving sequence that moves at breakneck speed.
It really is. But then, the action zeroes in on the runt of the litter. Holy shit. It is a miraculous, savage display of survival. He is swallowed whole, but he manages to lodge himself sideways deep in the wolf's throat.
Such a wild visual.
He violently chokes the predator to death from the inside and then bursts free from the beast's gaping mouth with a triumphant, blood-curdling cry. The stage is just drenched in theatrical blood at this point.
Yeah, the props department really went all out.
They really did. Watching this unfold, the analogy that comes to mind isn't a typical battle. It's like an autoimmune response in the body. When a biological system is under extreme unnatural stress, like total abandonment, it stops acting like a normal entity and turns entirely hostile just to keep the host alive. That's what this infant becomes, a pure, hostile autoimmune response to his mother's neglect.
That analogy perfectly illuminates the underlying biology of the scene, and it highlights the shattered illusion we discussed earlier. Remember how Violet romanticized the wild when she looked at the boar pig?
Yeah, she thought it was beautiful.
Right, she thought the wild was just this passionate, misunderstood soul. But the wild, her offspring actually experience is violent and indifferent. The ants and the wolf do not care about romance or sanctuary. The play strips away the romanticization of nature and replaces it with the brutal truth of consumption and survival.
And that violent awakening is just the beginning of how trauma reshapes them, because the play physically splits the narrative in Act 4. The set design executes one of its most ambitious moves. The stage floor literally drops out.
It's a breathtaking technical feat.
Oh, totally. You are suddenly staring into a pitch-black subterranean abyss. The darkness is only broken by a cinematic explosion of red gore as the bloodline violently diverges. Hethist, Halishit, and Dikia fall into this dark void and are immediately hunted by a horde of monstrous, cannibalistic Orc-Rakai.
The subterranean terror here is intense.
Very. But the stage choreography here isn't just a chaotic, messy brawl. It is chillingly precise. We watch these three traumatized infants operate like a hardened tactical unit. Dikia trips a towering orc with a snakeskin rope. Hethus leaps onto the monster's shoulders and shoves a wet, oily rag down its throat. And then Halisha ignites it with a perfectly aimed flaming blast, shattering the orc's head.
It's like a ballet of violence.
Yes. It is breathtaking to watch, but deeply unsettling. It's like a Navy SEAL operation, but executed by magical infants.
And it's unsettling because the choreography here isn't just cool action. It's a visual metaphor for extreme trauma. When a child is completely stripped of safety and abandoned to predators, the brain hyper-focuses on survival at the expense of everything else.
Right.
The text uses this magical tactical combat to physically illustrate how severe childhood neglect forces victims to bypass childhood entirely. They don't get to play it. They have to become hardened survivors just to see the next day.
They don't just survive the abyss, they weaponize it. And the sequence culminates with the three of them being swept away by a gushing, magma-filled subterranean river, sliding directly into the dark den of Princess Ashtasha.
The Princess of Shame.
Exactly. Ashtasha is deeply impressed by their ruthless survival skills and drafts them into her 100,000-strong demonic horde. Dikia is appointed the Foghorn commander, while Hethist and Halishit become her favored security advisors. They are literally sitting beside the throne of shame.
Which brings us to perhaps the most profound irony of the entire play. If there is one big takeaway from this act, it's that shame doesn't destroy the things we hide. It incubates them.
Oh, that's a great point.
Violet thought the dark roots of the willow tree would kill her secret, but the dark is exactly where monsters learn to see. By abandoning her children specifically to hide her shame, she inadvertently delivered them directly to the demonic Princess of Shame. She thought she was discarding them, but she actually empowered them, giving them the exact environment where their monstrosity could thrive and gain immense power.
Wow. And while the dark incubates three of them, the stage crossfades in Act 5 to show us what happens when trauma meets unearned grace. The harsh reds and blacks of the magma fade away, replaced by a misty, lethal water's edge.
The contrast is so sharp.
It is. The spotlight catches the bright blue eyes of the two remaining runts, Durwood and Dillwood. They are shivering. They are severely traumatized. They are covered in pulsing red ant bites, and they are stranded in the domain of the story's apex predator, a giant anaconda named Gary who devours anyone who enters his waters. It's a completely hopeless setup.
A literal dead end.
But then a boat emerges from the mist. Enter Prince Delanium Dracoffey, who serves as the story's embodiment of unearned privilege and royal charity. It is a classic cinematic rescue. He braves the anaconda's deadly waters, sweeps the freezing piglets onto his boat to safety, and, well, he feeds them turkey wings.
Which is such a weirdly specific detail.
It's so wildly specific, but oddly comforting amidst all this grit. He welcomes them into his royal family. Over time, we watch a transformation montage on stage. They are bestowed with new names, Podge and Pickle. They grow into massive, noble, armored boarmen, becoming fiercely loyal, protective brothers-in-arms to the prince.
A total shift in their destiny.
Yes, but I have to be honest with you. I got a little frustrated watching this unfold. We just watched three kids get turned into demonic warlords through sheer trauma, and then a prince just shows up on a boat, hands out some turkey wings, and completely fixes the other two.
It does feel a bit convenient.
It feels too neat. Is the text seriously suggesting that a little bit of royal charity just magically cures monstrous genetics? Does this completely validate the nurture over nature argument?
It is completely fair to feel frustrated by that juxtaposition, because it feels unearned compared to the suffering of the others. But the author isn't suggesting that charity just cures genetics. Instead, this act is a profound statement on epigenetic expression and the power of environments.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, think about it for you, the listener. All five of these children share the exact same cursed, monstrous bloodline. They all share the same horrific origin story of abandonment. But Durwood and Dillwood were introduced to a dramatically different environment.
Right.
The safety, the consistent nourishment represented by those turkey wings, the sense of belonging, this reshaped how their horrific legacy expressed itself. The innate, monstrous strength of the boar wasn't erased, it was rechanneled.
Oh, I see.
Instead of manifesting as destructive rage in the abyss, it became fiercely protective loyalty in the light. It suggests that while we cannot change our origins or the monsters in our bloodline, the environment we are given or the environment we manage to find dictates how that inherent nature manifests in the world.
That is so powerful. But of course, you cannot outrun your origins forever, which means we have to bring the curtain down, and that requires returning to where we started. Act 6, the inescapable loop. We have reached the climax.
The tension here is unbelievable.
The massive set design rotates, bringing us back to the original garden from Act 1. But it is completely unrecognizable. It is a scene of utter vandalization. The lush vines you saw at the beginning are torn to shreds, the flowing waters are choked with debris, and the flowers are crushed into the mud. The spotlight zeroes in on Elder Violinette. She is older now, weary. She is sitting completely motionless amidst the destruction of her sanctuary as massive orcai beasts tear her life's work apart.
And these are the very beasts that now routinely charge down from the dark mountains to terrorize the realm.
Yes, and as the destruction rages around her, the action on stage slows down. The lighting sharpens. Violinette locks eyes with the towering beast leading the vanguard. It's Heathist.
The firstborn.
Exactly. A horrifying shudder of recognition ripples through her body. You can see the exact moment the realization hits her like a physical blow. She sees Bartkiss's resemblance in this warlord's face, and she knows she is staring up at her abandoned firstborn son.
The guilt must be crushing.
She is paralyzed by unbearable guilt. It's like a dystopian boomerang. You throw your biggest mistakes, your deepest, most shameful secrets away into the dark forest, hoping you will never have to look at them again. But they always come back. And when they do, they are completely unrecognizable, and they have the power to tear down the very house you built to feel safe.
The dystopian boomerang perfectly captures the mechanics of this climax, and the text provides a chilling piece of psychological context for this final scene. It explicitly states that the beasts were subconsciously drawn back to the exact place of their birth.
Wow, they didn't even know why they were there.
Exactly. Heathist and his horde didn't logically know why they were attacking this specific garden. What the play is executing here is a psychological masterclass on stage. Unresolved trauma and hidden shame will inevitably subconsciously return to the exact site of the original wound.
That's haunting.
Violinette tried to bury her actions in the roots of a tree, but the trauma she inflicted on her children acted like a magnetic pull. It brought the literal, breathing manifestation of her shame right back to her doorstep. She was left trapped in silent torment, a tragic witness to a legacy of destruction that she herself created.
What an incredibly vivid, haunting theatrical journey. We are bringing the curtain down on the tragic epic of Violinette Phemic Boobs, and we want to thank you for sitting in the front row with us to visualize this deep dive.
The stagecraft and visual brilliance of the story are remarkable, but the timeless warning it leaves us with is really what sticks with you. The things we create, whether they are born out of forbidden secret love or out of deep panic shame, do not just disappear when we close our eyes and turn our backs on them. They incubate in the dark, and eventually they take on a terrifying life of their own.
So as the house lights come back up and you walk out of the theater into the real world, here is one final lingering thought for you to ponder on your own. When the elder Violinette sat paralyzed in the ruins of her garden and she locked eyes with the towering warlord Heathist, do you think he recognized her too? And if he did, was the destruction of her sanctuary just the wild, subconscious instinct of a beast? Or was it an act of profound, deliberate revolt against the mother who left him to the wolves?